Today on Vintage Steel Garage we look why the TD5 is rather sluggish. Now, we were going to be doing some work on this once again. Rear suspension. It's a bit droopy. I don't think you can see that too well. Let's have a look. It's a bit saggy at the back end, although it's probably slightly saggy because I've got a boot full of spares. Anyway, we're not on that. We're on this. Just been out to pick my daughter up and I was wondering, why is it very underperforming? Why is it very sluggish? Well, have a look. Basically, this is the Wastegate Actuator, this is the turbo here, and this is the Wastegate Actuator. So that's open, that's closed. It's basically fell off, so it was just basically dumping all the boost. So when this gets to a certain pressure through here, this Wastegate actuator will open, push out and open the turbo to dump the boost. So obviously I've been running with no boost, which explains why it's been woeful. So I'm going to adjust this back in so I can get the boost to operate. Right, I think that's a better shot on it now. So as I was saying, this is the Wastegate. So this is, sometimes sees up actually, but this is moving okay. So what I need to do now is get this back to here and screw this back on. And there is just a little thumb wheel screw here. I think it's just the lock nuts come loose and it's vibrated off. So if I run that back up, that's at the point where it's tight. Run that down there. Tighten that lock nut up. So that's just a 10mm spanner, tighten that up. There. So what I'm going to do now, this is the air feed boost manifold pressure. So when this gets to a certain point, it will push this and actuate this. What I'm going to do is connect this into my gauge. So I'm basically putting this T-piece in line. So it's going to come through there. Now, unfortunately I have to bear with me, my gauge is upside down. I'm not quite sure it's the right gauge for reading this, but you can now actually see it is reading boost when I set off. The gauge then has a little bit of a spazzy attack and I'm not quite sure why, and it's reading up to, well, it's saying 4 bar, but it can't be that at all. It's never reading 4 bar. It's probably 1 bar, 13 psi it should be getting up to. But the main thing is it's registering boost. And it is actually moving now. When I say moving, I mean the car moving. It wasn't moving at all before. Now if you just watch the last few minutes of the video, you'll realise, like I did, I was talking complete bollocks. What I did realise, but I left it in on purpose, as I was editing the video, I realised on this gauge here, this is actually reading 0 to 9 psi. I thought it was bar, I don't know why. So it's not, and it's fuel pressure, so it won't be 9 bar. Anyway, so it's 0 to 9 psi. Now the turbo on the Discovery is set for 1 bar, which is about 14 psi. They say you can take it up to 1.2 bar, which is at a guess going to be 16 psi, something like that. Now also I was actually measuring it in the wrong place, so when it was going up to 4 and then chattering, I've realised that's completely wrong. So let's just go and have a look at the car and I'll show you what I think is actually happening. Okay, so what I think's happening, and I'll just a bit of a recap here for people who aren't sure what turbos and how they work. This is the turbo here, and this creates pressure on this side, so the exhaust spins this side, the exhaust gases spin this side on the cast side, and then you get a impeller through to the turbo on this side. So this creates boost here, and this boost goes down here, through here, through the intercooler at the front, and then into the engine on the other side, into the inlet manifold. So basically what you're looking for 13 psi maximum, or the same 13 psi, take it up to 16 psi, and there's a little cut off. There's a point here which I think you can just see if I try and get the camera in. You can just see there, there's a little takeoff there, and that's actually going to this Wastegate modulator, which again is a little bit tricky to see. You can just see it here. There's an input at the bottom there from the turbo, so that's reading the manifold pressure, which is the turbo output pressure. This is measuring the inlet pressure here from the air filter, and then there's an output that goes from here to the actual wastegate. Now this is wastegate. This is the bit that actually controls the boost. So that's the valve shut. When that opens, and this lever will go this way, like this, so this bar extends out, that then drops all the pressure. So what you're looking for, and I'll test this later, I need to put 13 psi on here, or well, I need to put pressure on here and see at what point this operates, and you can adjust that by shortening this rod. But what they really recommend is nothing over 15-16 psi on a standard Discovery, or else you're going to get into problems with blowing head gaskets, blowing manifold bolts, all sorts of things, and I don't want to do that on a high mileage vehicle. I just want to make sure it's really performing. So for me, anything at 13 psi, I'll leave it alone. So the first thing what I'm going to do, what I'd done before I'd teed into this, which was the output after this modulator, and again this little modulator, which is hard to see but it's arrowed there. The purpose of this modulator is to hold off and delay the point where this wastegate opens. So there are certain points where probably accelerating up a hill, you may create more boost and then it would be dropping off. So I believe on a Defender it's mapped directly from the output to here, and that's what most cars are like. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to tap in with a T-piece down here, put a gauge in the car and go for a drive and see what PSI we're actually getting out the turbo as a reference starting point. Okay, so I've connected the pressure gauge in. What I've done, I've broken into this line here. So this is the line from the turbo, which I think you can just see there. So it comes from the turbo and the inlet pipe to the intercooler. That's going back to the wastegate modulator. That's brushed into here. This hose comes round to here to a gauge on a longer hose I can have inside, which is reading a maximum of 10 full scale deflection. So if it's going to get to 13 or 14, I imagine it's going to go slightly off the scale. I don't think there's any stop for that. So we'll see if we can get it up here first of all, and that gives an idea what pressure we've got. So we've got the gauge connected in the car. It's going out through the window there. I'm in park at the moment, rev, no boost, which is what you'd expect. So if I put it in drive, my foot on the brake, because turbos only work when they're loaded up, you can see it's starting to rise, so it's reading. So we have got a reading there, so let's get out. So we are getting a reading now. I'm not accelerating too hard, doing about 2000 RPM, try and get it a bit higher. So I would say that's probably reading about 14 psi, so it seems to be working. So we seem to be getting a good reading there. So what I might just try now is reading the pressure, is seeing what pressure actually actuates the wastegate. So then I can understand at what point the wastegate's opening. What I've got now is a airline rigged up to the wastegate on here, and also the pressure gauge. So I've got this fed from my compressor, and I can see what sort of pressure is actuating this turbo arm. Now my gauge only goes up to 10, but I've actually marked 15 on here, which is 1 bar, and it says it'll take 1.2 bars, so you can probably come round to about the 15 figure on the gauge for it to actuate. There, I think we can see that a bit better there. So if we just increase the pressure slowly, so it's climbing up now, 5 bar, 10, 15, I can hear it just starting to move. There, it's fully open at that point there now, which is probably about 20 psi when it blew off. So that's probably a little bit high, so what I'm going to do is just back that off a little bit on the adjuster. Basically adjust this nut here to just extend the bar a little bit, just take the pressure off, and let's see at what point that now operates. I think it's starting to bleed off there, so we now got it to start to bleed off at about 16 psi, so that seems okay. So what I'm going to try now, just going to go on a test run and try having it connected directly, bypass the modulator and direct from the intercooler down here into here, so we get the full PSI in, and let's just go a little run and see how that performs. So what I've done now is I've taken a feed direct from the manifold pressure straight to the wastegate, so the pressure of that will alter this. So if I get to 15 psi here, this wastegate is going to open, so it's like a closed circuit system, so it'll get up to pressure, bleed the pressure off, and then it won't be able to go over that 15 because it's sort of feeding itself. So I'll put the gauge inside, see what we can get on that, and go on a little test run. Okay, now I've just been for a little test ride in it, and it does seem to confirm my suspicion. Before I thought there was something wrong with the wastegate modulator. It seems to cut out before it changes up in gear, so you're sort of revving and then it'll die and then change gear. Now it's done that for the last 18 months I've owned it, but I thought it was something wrong. Now reading online, it can say if the ECU sees an overboost, then it will cut back the fuel momentarily, and that could be what it was doing, because now basically I've bypassed the wastegate modulator. I've just got a pipe direct from the intake, from the turbo inlet manifold. Sorry, I've just got a feed direct from the output of the turbo before it goes into the intercooler direct to the wastegate. Now that's how most old school turbos work. So if it sees the pressure that matches the wastegate spring rate, it will operate the dump valve and then release the pressure. So that's what I've got, and I've also got this gauge in here which is showing the pressure. So if we're just showing, it seems to shift a lot smoother as well. So if we just set off now and we have a look, so we're in drive, let's try and get that a little bit better. So we're in drive now, and let's just listen to the revs while we accelerate off. Oh no, I'm not in drive at all, I'm in park. Right, I'm in drive now. So bear in mind it's going to go around to the white mark off the 10 scale, which is about 15 psi. So if I accelerate, it's already changed up there, and I don't remember that smooth change before. Changed again, and I can, if I push it now, get up to about 15 psi, and it just seems a lot smoother. So we've got a bit of a hill here, so we'll just try it up the hill. So it performs up here with a kick down. So it's kicked down, the booster's gone up. Probably holding about 13-14 psi there up the hill, and then it's changed up again. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to spin the car around, drop that pressure, swap it back in so the wastegate actuator is back in circuit, and try that again. So as a comparison now, as I said, I put it back to stock. I've got the wastegate connected, I've got the wastegate modulator connected to the inlet pressure at the bottom of it, and then the output of the wastegate modulator, instead of it being connected directly into the turbo, I've just got a T-piece or a Y-piece into the pressure gauge there, so I can read what pressure this is picking up. This is basically stock, so I've got it back to normal. So we're in drive now and we've got the Wastegate modular reconnected, so let's go on the same journey and see how it performs. So you'll see the gauge is all over the place, it's suffering, it then kicks up. Let's just start off, slow down again, let's see if we can ramp it up again. I don't think it's ramping up smoothly. So pressure's building up, it's quite laboursome in it building up, it's not building up fast at all, your foot's nearly on the floor, and then all of a sudden it gets to 5 and it's off. And then it'll kick down. Yeah, it's very, very different. So I think what's happening is, I think the pressure is bleeding off past the Wastegate modulator, not letting the pressure get to full pressure. So I can just try and get it up there now. It gets to 5 bar, and no, it's all over the place, the gauge. There's no more pressure, there's no more acceleration. I'm pressing the pedal further, further, further. It'll now kick down and just make more noise. So yeah, definitely, it's absolutely definitely Wastegate modulator failed. So that's a quick fix. The quick fix basically is to simply just bypass the Wastegate modulator and let it run old school inlet pressure, sorry, what's the word I'm looking for, basically outlet pressure from the turbo. Yeah, it's just not having it. I just cannot main anything less than 5 psi. No, as soon as I get anything more than 5 psi, it must be leaking past the modulator. Whereas what it should be doing, if necessary, is holding it that little bit longer. It's basically just not performing. So what I'll do, I'm going to get home, bypass that, and then I'll show you how we do that. Right, so I'm pleased to report back then after the test run it is still working well with just a simple bypass. And basically what I've done, I've taken a pipe from the turbo intercooler, which is just this one here, taking this pipe off. This was going to the Wastegate modular, and basically run this pipe from here to here on the Wastegate, just to here, and that's bypassing modulator. Going into the top of the modulator was this hose, and I've just blanked that. Now that is not pressurised because this is the input, so this is from the air filter into the turbo, so there's no pressure there, and all it would have done is drawn a bit of air in through there and created a bit of a weaker mixture, pulling a bit of air in past the filter. But out of just completeness I've blanked it off, so that's blanked off. I just want to clarify and go over what we found, the conclusions really, because I think partway through the test drive I may have given a bit of sort of conflicting information while I'm sort of trying to work out what actually happened. Obviously this all started with the turbo Wastegate driver fell off, so there was absolutely no turbo boost whatsoever, so it was very lacklustre on performance. I then thought I'd have a look at what this Wastegate modulator did and just ascertain, are we getting full boost pressure through the intercooler, and is the wastegate opening correctly? So just to clarify then, what I think has actually happened is the Wastegate modulator has failed, isn't allowing full pressure to the wastegate, which what that actually then means is the wastegate will not open. When the wastegate won't open, the boost pressure will ramp up. Once it gets past about 16 psi, the ECU will see that overboost pressure and cut fuel, which makes sense because in an automatic what was happening is you would set off, the revs would rise, the boost would rise, and as you see in one of the clips on the road trip, you'll see I was recording more than 15 psi boost. So what's happening is the revs rise, the ECU sees overboost, goes, crikey, this is going to cause a problem, shuts the fueling off. That then gives this sort of flatline hesitation, and then it changes up a gear. Obviously it's changed, the revs have gone down, the boost comes back on, it goes again. So that's sort of also confirmed by on one of the road trips where you saw we were only getting 4 or 5 psi at the outside of the modulator. So it seems to make sense that it was basically the engine was seeing it as an overboost because the wastegate wasn't opening, and it had just run away. So obviously with it now reconnected, we've got the output of the wastegate modulator at a higher pressure, which, as you've seen when I put the airline on, it needed about 15 psi to open the wastegate. So what's happening is the revs will rise up, the output of the wastegate modulator will rise up, get to 15 psi, bleed the wastegate off. The ECU is not seeing an overfuel, and therefore I don't get that cutout, and I change up. And that's what you could see as well. Beforehand, you'd see it rise up, you see the RPM rise up, and then it'd have this sort of hesitation off, and then rise up again, hesitation off, rise up. Whereas now it just sort of, the revs just go up, changes gear, it just goes up, changes gear, and it's a lot smoother. So hopefully I've explained that right. But if you do think you have this problem with yours and it's lagging, you can do some simple tests like I did. If you've got a PSI gauge, check it on the outlet pressure of the turbo to the intercooler, and then check it on the output of the wastegate modulator to the wastegate, and also put an airline on the wastegate modulator and see what pressure that's tripping out. So I've given it a bit of a health check. I'm pretty happy I need to replace the wastegate modulator, but for now I'm just going to have it linked out as I'd shown you in the video before. So thanks for watching, hope it's helped you. It helped me. Funny, I've driven around with a car like this for 18 months and just thought that was a Land Rover. So I'm quite pleased, and it does drive a lot better now. So if you have liked it, please like, subscribe. It'd be nice if I could get up to at least 100 subscribers, because I know that's definitely outside my friends and family group. So thank you very much if you've subscribed to that, and keep watching. And hopefully you'll see a few more videos of other things we've got to work on, like the Apache truck, like the Porsche, like the Dodge Dart, which I keep promising to work on a wheel, and maybe lots of other things which will come up. And hopefully it's all little tips or inclinations of little bits I've done. I don't have a fantastically budget or a big garage to work on, and it's the sort of things with a bit of application at home you can sort out yourself, save some money and have a bit of fun at the same time. So thanks for watching, please like and subscribe. Thank you.